2012, the year the world came to an end. Well, actually, plans changed, as a certain veteran wrestling scribe might say. But like all years before and after, 2012 was one of endings in addition to beginnings. Some of today's most celebrated stars began building their looming legacies in 2012, while older stars renewed their careers under the threat of prophesized apocalypse. It's a year in which WWE took increased steps toward global domination, while butting heads with its nearest American competitor. And that competitor was showing lots of promise in 2012, arguably the last year it was anything resembling a threat on a national level. Influential indies experienced pains among changing times, while an international powerhouse continued on an evolutionary course. In many ways, the wrestling that we see today was in large part shaped by the goings-on in 2012, of which half the events feel contemporary and the other half gallingly dated. That said, let's take a look back at a year in which we debated who got it wrong more: WWE creative, TNA creative, or those pesky doomsday prophets. This is Timeline 2012. Join us! January 2nd. After weeks of creepy vignettes depicting two school children amid lots of ghostly imagery, Chris Jericho returns to WWE on Monday Night Raw after a 16-month hiatus. Jericho doesn't speak in his return segment, nor will he for weeks afterward, instead appealing to the crowd as a high-energy mute with a disturbing grin. His first words won't come until the January 23rd Raw, when he cautions that the end of the world is coming at the Royal Rumble. January 4th. New Japan Pro Wrestling holds its 6th Wrestle Kingdom before a reported 43,000 fans at the Tokyo Dome. In the main event, Hiroshi Tanahashi retains the IWGP Heavyweight title by defeating Minoru Suzuki. Of note from the undercard, the performance and presentation of a certain 24-year-old Kazuchika Okada are criticized, as even Dave Meltzer writes that Okada is completely unconvincing in his role of a dashing playboy. How weird that critique sounds with over a decade of hindsight. January 8th. TNA kicks off its 2012 pay-per-view calendar with Genesis, held before 1,100 fans at Orlando's Impact Zone. An evening of mostly middling bouts concludes with Jeff Hardy defeating TNA World Champion Bobby Roode, albeit by disqualification. On the same night, Bull Nakano stages her own retirement event before 3,000 fans at Tokyo Dome City Hall. The event is basically a stage show commemorating 3 of Nakano's most heralded bouts: a tag match with Dump Matsumoto against Crush Gals, her chain match with Shinobu Kandori, and her cage match with Aja Kong. Nakano ends the production by legitimately marrying her longtime boyfriend Daisuke Aoki. January 9th. The planned launch of the WWE Network is delayed. Plans were to debut the ambitious service on April 1st, which was WrestleMania Sunday, but it's decided to hold off until more network-exclusive programs are filmed to accompany the event archives. Speaking of delayed debuts, Brodus Clay finally appears on WWE Raw after months of teased appearances that amounted to a strange running gag. But instead of portraying the unyielding monster that he'd previously played, Clay becomes the Funkasaurus, a happy, dancing babyface that's accompanied by backup dancers in Cameron and future multi-time women's title holder Naomi. In his Funkasaurus debut, Clay just about literally squashes Kurt Hawkins. January 12th. At a Florida Championship Wrestling taping in Tampa, Lea Key, the future Roman Reigns, wins a triple threat match over Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. Few would have predicted how these 3 men would come to define mainstream professional wrestling over the decade plus to follow, whether sharing the ring together or not. January 14th. The apparent final shows ever to be held at Philadelphia's ECW Arena take place, as CZW holds an excellent adventure in the afternoon, followed by Evolve's A Tribute to the Arena as a nightcap. The latter card is headlined by ECW originals Sabu and Just Incredible in a hardcore match. However, events will resume at the arena in late 2013 after plans to turn the building into a concert hall fall through. January 17th. 2 days after he and partner Kofi Kingston dropped the WWE Tag Team titles to Epico and Primo at a house show, Evan Bourne is suspended 60 days for his second violation of WWE's wellness policy. Bourne never again wrestles a main roster WWE match prior to his release over 2 years later. January 27th. 4,300 fans at Manchester's MEN Arena probably didn't realize it, but they're about to witness the final match of Hulk Hogan's career, as he teams with Sting and James Storm to defeat Kurt Angle, Bully Ray, and Bobby Roode in the main event of a TNA house show. January 29th. WWE holds its 25th annual Royal Rumble before over 18,000 fans at St. Louis's Scottrade Center. The titular match is a bit of a mess, as WWE overdoes it with random and comedy-based entrants, after previously billing that anyone was eligible to enter the 30-person match. Among the surprises are Karma in her only WWE match, Ricardo Rodriguez driving a shabby-looking car, and all 3 ringside announcers. In another surprise, the Rumble is won by Sheamus, who last eliminates odds-on favorite Chris Jericho. And both world champions leave St. Louis packing the gold, as WWE champion CM Punk defeats Dolph Ziggler, while world heavyweight champion Daniel Bryan outlasts Big Show and Mark Henry in a 3-way cage match. January 31st. Japanese entertainment company Bushiroad announces it's acquired New Japan Pro Wrestling after buying out all the shares from prior principal owner Yuke's for about 500 million yen, approximately $6.5 million at the time. February 9th. WWE tours Abu Dhabi for the first time, holding 3 shows in 3 nights. February 12th. In a stunning development for the time, Kazuchika Okada ends the 13-month IWGP Heavyweight title reign of Hiroshi Tanahashi at the New Beginning in Osaka. Though the match is pretty great, Okada's first world title win is negatively received, coming on the heels of a heavy but sudden month-long push. On the same date, TNA's Against All Odds in Orlando got off to a grim start when Jesse Sorensen suffered a fractured C1 vertebrae after Zema Ion, future NXT performer Joaquin Wilde, moonsaulted onto him on the floor during the opening match. The rest of the night was a mostly below-average affair, peaking with an X Division title match where champion Austin Aries defeated former ally Alex Shelley. February 14th. TNA confirms that writer Vince Russo parted ways with the organization sometime during the prior week. But it won't be the last time that Russo assists TNA creatively. Oh no, 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 no. No. February 19th. WWE's annual Elimination Chamber draws over 15,000 fans to Milwaukee's Bradley Center. The 5-match broadcast is pretty paint by numbers, except for the fact that erstwhile comedy performer Santino Marella puts up one hell of a fight in the chamber match for the World Heavyweight title, surviving to the end. In the main event, John Cena defeats Kane in an ambulance match, which is part of a convoluted angle that sees new crowd favorite Zack Ryder get repeatedly battered by Kane and then later emasculated by Eve Torres? Either way, Cena plays the confused Superman to Ryder's hapless Jimmy Olsen while killing time before WrestleMania. On the same date, New Japan, All Japan, and Pro Wrestling Noah join up for All Together, a joint card in Sendai to benefit earthquake and tsunami victims. The 8-match show is filled with multi-person tags and concludes with Hiroshi Tanahashi, Suwama, and Takeshi Morishima defeating Go Shiozaki, Seiya Sanada, and Tetsuya Naito. February 21st. WWE releases an updated version of the classic WrestleFest arcade game for iOS. Modern stars like John Cena and Randy Orton join a list of legends including Steve Austin, The Rock, Randy Savage, and many more in the game. February 23rd. WWE posts its first money-losing quarter in years, as the 2011 fourth quarter reports a net loss of over $8.6 million. Losses are in part due to numerous WWE Films releases performing well short of their projections. March 2nd. Doug Furnas, a former powerlifter turned professional wrestler in the 1980s, passes away from heart disease at the age of 52. After early experience in Knoxville's Continental Group, the supremely athletic Furnas experienced his greatest wrestling success in All Japan, where he and Dan Kroffat, aka Phil LaFon, held the All Asia Tag Team titles on 5 occasions, and also won the 1991 Tag Determination League. Stateside, Furnas had a year-long run with LaFon in the WWF in the mid-90s, and the two also briefly reigned as ECW Tag Team Champions in 1997. As a powerlifter, Furnas was renowned for his squat strength and still holds the Tennessee state record with a 986-pound squat. March 3rd. 25-year-old Ronda Rousey wins the Strikeforce Women's Bantamweight Championship after submitting rival Miesha Tate in the main event of a card in Columbus, Ohio. Rousey moves to 5-0 with the win, with all of her prior wins coming via her signature armbar. March 4th. Ring of Honor holds their 10th anniversary show at New York's Hammerstein Ballroom before a crowd of 1,400 fans. In the main event, Adam Cole and Eddie Edwards defeat Ring of Honor World Champion Davey Richards and Kyle O'Reilly in a 40-minute battle. Afterwards, anti-hero Kevin Steen taunts the quartet from the crowd, helping set the stage for a future match against Richards. Elsewhere on the landmark card, Steen defeats Jimmy Jacobs in a no disqualification match, while tag champions the Briscoes defeat the Young Bucks. March 8th. In an ambitious character turn, Abyss appears on Impact Wrestling as his own brother, a bumbling, peaceable lawyer named Joseph Park Esquire, who's looking for Abyss following a recent disappearance. The real-life Chris Park's committed performance as Abyss's polar opposite sibling over the months ahead will net him the 2012 Wrestling Observer Award for Best Gimmick. March 18th. TNA Victory Road from Orlando is a step above recent offerings. A match in which Kurt Angle defeats Jeff Hardy is the best bout of a solid 8-match card. In the main event, world champion Bobby Roode outlasts Sting in a pretty good no-holds-barred match, though the ending is widely ridiculed as Sting accidentally knocks himself out after hitting his head on a chair while performing a Scorpion Death Drop. March 20th. It's reported that WWE developmental group Florida Championship Wrestling will be shutting down. FCW founder Steve Ken denies the report, as does Paul Levesque, the latter of whom notes that WWE will be revamping its developmental system. FCW tapes its final broadcast on June 7th before staging its final card in early August. March 22nd. Joe Blanchard, former wrestler and later promoter of the Texas-based Southwest Championship Wrestling, passes away from skin cancer at the age of 83. As a wrestler, Blanchard held the NWA Texas Heavyweight belt on 2 occasions during the 1960s. After retiring in 1978, Blanchard founded Southwest, operating the group for 7 years before selling in 1985. Blanchard's son Tully went on to have a noteworthy wrestling career of his own, as has granddaughter Tessa. March 24th. TNA head writer Bruce Pritchard suffers 2 heart attacks, requiring 2 stents to be fitted to his heart. Jerry Lawler makes a light-hearted reference to Pritchard's situation at WrestleMania XXVIII a week later when John Laurinaitis makes his entrance at the event. March 26th. On or around this date, Paul Levesque hires former volleyball player Canyon Seaman as the Director of Talent Relations, as part of the WWE developmental revamp. WWE believes Seaman has a keen eye for spotting talent, but fat lot of good that does for fans who will spend the next 9 years just laughing at his name. March 30th and 31st. Ring of Honor holds a 2-night spectacular Showdown in the Sun from the Fort Lauderdale War Memorial. The highlight is the main event of the second night, in which the world champion Davey Richards outlasts Michael Elgin in a hard-hitting 27-minute battle of wills. Unfortunately, the doubleheader is somewhat marred by maddening technical issues with the broadcast of the first show. The same weekend, during WrestleMania festivities, Dean Ambrose confronts Mick Foley as part of a planned reality-based angle, accusing Foley of inspiring a generation of wrestlers to mutilate themselves into early ruin. The feud doesn't go much further and is soon, unfortunately, scrapped due to both Foley being unable to gain medical clearance and because Foley took exception to some of Ambrose's remarks about his family. On the Saturday night, WWE inducts its annual Hall of Fame class, which includes Edge, the Four Horsemen, Yokozuna, and many more. April 1st. WrestleMania 28 draws a reported 78,000 fans to Miami's Sun Life Stadium and sets the all-time record for highest-grossing wrestling pay-per-view with over 1.2 million buys. In the so-termed once-in-a-lifetime main event between generational icons, The Rock defeats John Cena. The Undertaker moves to 20-0 at WrestleMania after outlasting Triple H inside Hell in a Cell, while CM Punk retains the WWE title over Chris Jericho via submission. The evening's lowlight is World Heavyweight Champion Daniel Bryan losing his title to Sheamus in an 18-second opener. Fans both at the stadium and at home are annoyed by this choice in booking, which will prove far more harmful to heavily pushed babyface Sheamus than it will greater crowd favorite Bryan. April 2nd. Former multi-sport world champion Brock Lesnar returns to WWE after 8 years away, annihilating John Cena and his hat at the end of a raucous post-WrestleMania Raw in Miami. The response to Lesnar's return far outsizes that of fellow former WWE and New Japan star Albert, who returns on the same card as reborn gladiator Lord Tensai, squashing Alex Riley earlier in the program. April 3rd. Chief Jay Strongbow, a popular babyface star of numerous territories from the 50s into the 80s, particularly in the Northeast, passes away at the age of 83. Though legitimately an Italian-American, the real-life Luke Scarpa carved out his most famed career as proud and tough Strongbow, beginning the role in New York in 1970 when he was already 41. Strongbow held the WWF Tag Team titles on 4 occasions with 3 different partners, in addition to holding titles in Florida, Mid-South, and Knoxville. After retiring in the mid-80s, Strongbow became one of Vince McMahon's top backstage officials, a position he would hold until well into the 90s. The same day, Ryback wrestles his first televised main roster match under that name, defeating enhancement talent Barry Stevens at a SmackDown taping. Though fans are quick to equate Ryback to Goldberg, the character becomes over enough to justify a main event push before year's end. April 12th. 16 years after winning Olympic gold in freestyle wrestling, Kurt Angle pulls out of the 2012 Olympic trials amid a serious comeback bid at the age of 43. Angle blames knee injuries for having to back out. April 15th. TNA draws 3,000 for a pretty average lockdown at the Nashville Municipal Auditorium. Kurt Angle, injuries be damned, steals the show with Jeff Hardy, while Tennessee statesman James Storm sadly comes up short in his challenge of treacherous former partner Bobby Roode in the main event for Roode's world title. In the Lethal Lockdown match that opens the show, Garrett Bischoff pins Father Eric, which writes Eazy-E out as a character. April 23rd. 1 year after winning Tough Enough, Andy Levine is released from WWE. The 6'5" Levine goes on to wrestle in Puerto Rico for the World Wrestling Council before retiring in 2014. April 26th. TNA debuts Gut Check as a monthly reality TV style segment, where an independent wrestling hopeful could earn a spot on their roster based on a one-off performance. Winning contestants include Alex Silver, Taylor Hendricks, and Sam Shaw. the future Dexter Lumis. That same day, WWE announces that Rey Mysterio has been suspended for his second failure of WWE's wellness policy and is subject to a 60-day suspension. April 28th. Extreme Reunion, an ECW-centric promotion with designs on reigniting a long-extinguished torch, draws 2,400 to Philadelphia for what turns out to be a farce of a card. Wrestlers like Sabu and Just Incredible were left off the show due to reported personal issues, while non-ECW alums on the card were soundly rejected by the crowd. Show promoter Shane Douglas was greeted with numerous negative chants from irritated fans during the evening's main event. Douglas's group will continue on with further shows under the modified name of Extreme Rising. April 29th. WWE Extreme Rules, one of the company's best secondary pay-per-views of the 2010s, draws nearly 15,000 fans to Chicago's Allstate Arena, as well as a whopping 263,000 buys, largely because of Brock Lesnar's first WWE match since 2004. In the main event, Lesnar beats John Cena senseless and bloody in a shockingly violent match, but is of course still felled by Super Cena in the end. Elsewhere on the card, Sheamus retains his World Heavyweight title after beating Daniel Bryan in a 2 out of 3 falls match, while WWE Champion CM Punk retains over Chris Jericho in a Chicago street fight. April 30th. Nikki and Brie Bella leave WWE at the expiration of their contracts, losing to Divas champion Layla in a triple threat match on Raw on their way out. The Bellas won't return to WWE for 10 months. May 3rd. 2 titles change hands at New Japan's Wrestling Dontaku in Fukuoka. Low-Ki defeats Prince Devitt to win the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title, while Takashi Iizuka and Toru Yano win the IWGP World Tag Team titles from Hiroyoshi Tenzan and Satoshi Kojima. May 6th. WWE announces that it's released Dustin Goldust Runnels. The reported reason for Runnels' release was that while working as a producer, Runnels approved a dangerous double team spot during a tag team match that resulted in Yoshitatsu almost landing on his head. On the same date, Bobby Lashley loses via decision to James Thompson in the main event of a Super Fight League event in New Delhi, India. It's the second and final loss Lashley will sustain in a 17-fight MMA career. May 7th. More than 5.5 years after leaving the ECW brand, Paul Heyman returns to WWE television, once more acting as representation for Brock Lesnar. On the same date, Taiyo Kea wins All Japan's 2012 Champion Carnival, defeating Suwama in a 22-minute tournament final. May 10th. Shortly after signing with Bellator, Strikeforce star Muhammad Lawal also signs with TNA, with intent to begin training in Ohio Valley Wrestling. As of 2023, the man known as King Mo has only wrestled 1 match for TNA, and it didn't occur until 2017. May 12th. Kevin Steen becomes the new Ring of Honor World Champion after defeating Davey Richards at Border Wars in Toronto. After the match, Steen forms the faction Scum with Jimmy Jacobs and Steve Corino. Offsetting the big moment is another internet pay-per-view disaster for Ring of Honor, as the server shuts down, unable to handle so many logins. May 13th. TNA puts on an enjoyable sacrifice pay-per-view in Orlando, headlined by Bobby Roode retaining his world title over Rob Van Dam in a ladder match. Elsewhere, Kurt Angle defeats AJ Styles in a thrilling bout, while Austin Aries defeats Bully Ray via submission. The card is notable for top officials Dixie Carter, Hulk Hogan, and Eric Bischoff all being absent. May 17th. The first 3 episodes of NXT as a developmental group are taped in Winter Park, Florida. Future stars like Antonio Cesaro, Paige, Seth Rollins, and Dean Ambrose all take part. The same day, Brooke Hogan is signed to TNA to be the on-screen authority figure for TNA's Knockouts division. So both companies are looking for stars of tomorrow. They're just going about it in different ways is all. May 20th. WWE draws 8,000 fans to Raleigh's PNC Arena for Over the Limit, a classic case of a perfectly good show ruined by a brainless final act. CM Punk narrowly retains his WWE title over Daniel Bryan in a technical classic, while a returning, now babyface Christian captures the IC title from Cody Rhodes. In the main event, however, John Cena toys with a helpless John Laurinaitis for an eternity before succumbing to a convoluted finish where a recently fired Big Show magically appears to knock Cena out in a not-so-shocking swerve, thus saving Laurinaitis from losing the match and his job. Can't even blame Russo for this one. May 23rd. TNA files and receives a temporary restraining order against WWE after alleging contract tampering, particularly in the case of Ric Flair. The suit alleges that former TNA employee Brian Wittenstein violated a non-disclosure agreement and shared confidential contractual information with WWE. TNA's suit also alleges that Wittenstein told them that WWE requested the information he provided them. As for Flair, who'd been seeking to have his TNA contract terminated, he was officially released from TNA on May 11th. The release came 6 weeks after Flair was permitted to take part in a WWE Hall of Fame induction with the Four Horsemen. May 24th. Chris Jericho unexpectedly causes controversy when he crumples up and kicks a Brazilian flag before a match with CM Punk at an event in Sao Paulo. Local police step in and threaten to arrest Jericho, who apologizes to the audience and admits the act was simply done in character. WWE goes on to suspend Jericho for 30 days and apologizes to the people of Brazil. May 26th. Hans Schmidt, a Canadian-born wrestler who gained fame as the archetypal foreign heel during the 50s and 60s, passes away in his native Quebec at the age of 87. Born Guy LaRose, the 6'4" heavyweight took up the Schmidt character in the early 1950s, playing on American distaste toward post-war Germany. Schmidt battled the likes of Lou Thesz, Vern Gagne, Killer Kowalski, and Buddy Rogers during a prolific 27-year career, holding gold in Montreal, Florida, Georgia, and the AWA. May 28th. Energetic TNA announcer Don West gives his notice to the organization, leaving for a sales and marketing job for a hockey team. West had been with TNA since day one in 2002, making the unusual transition from shop-at-home TV host to wrestling announcing. Because of West's over-caffeinated delivery and earnest charm, the transition was ultimately successful. May 30th. Randy Orton is suspended from WWE for 60 days following his second violation of the company wellness policy. Some fans and journalists note that the failed test could actually constitute Orton's third violation and would make him subject to termination, as Orton went unpunished during the 2007 Signature Pharmacy scandal that others in a similar situation did get suspended over. May 31st. TNA Impact moves to live weekly broadcasts as opposed to taping several weeks of programs at once. The move to live shows was originally for only the summer months, but is later extended through the end of 2012. June 7th. FCW tapes its final broadcasts in Tampa. In the final televised match, William Regal goes to a no contest with longtime rival Dean Ambrose after Regal sustains a wound to his ear. In a torch-passing moment of sorts after the match, the historically ruthless Regal allows Ambrose to finish him off with his own knee trembler, leading to speculation that Regal's in-ring career could have been over. In actuality, Regal will wrestle until the end of 2013. June 9th. WWE purchases the Mid-South Wrestling video library from Bill Watts' ex-wife, Anae. Mid-South is added to an impressive group of defunct wrestling orgs that will eventually help comprise the WWE Network's vast archives. June 10th. TNA celebrates 10 long years of existence with Slammiversary before 5,500 fans at the College Park Center in suburban Dallas. The most notable appearance of the night comes from reigning WWE Intercontinental Champion and former NWA Champion Christian Cage, who makes a one-off appearance to finish TNA's Biggest Moments countdown. Christian's appearance was done in exchange for TNA allowing WWE to have Ric Flair for the Four Horsemen's Hall of Fame induction. The highlight of Slammiversary sees Kurt Angle and AJ Styles win the tag team titles from Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian in an excellent battle. In the main event, World Champion Bobby Roode once more retains over Sting. On the same date, Ryusuke Taguchi wins New Japan's Best of the Super Juniors tournament, defeating Low Ki in the finals. June 14th. On or around this date, Paul Levesque assumes control of WWE's Talent Relations Department, formalizing a new staff to take over from John Laurinaitis' administration. Laurinaitis returns to his prior role of road agent as Levesque continues the developmental overhaul. On the same night, 3 masked men attack Sting on an episode of Impact. This marks the official beginning of the Aces and Eights stable. June 16th. Hiroshi Tanahashi becomes IWGP Heavyweight Champion for a record-tying 6th time, defeating Kazuchika Okada in an enthralling main event of New Japan's Dominion. Meanwhile, Low Ki avenges his loss in the Super Juniors final, retaining his junior heavyweight title against tournament winner Ryusuke Taguchi. June 17th. WWE produces one of its weaker 2012 pay-per-views, No Way Out, at East Rutherford, New Jersey's Izod Center in front of a crowd of 10,000. John Cena defeats Big Show in a steel cage main event that results in John Laurinaitis losing his kayfabe administration job. Meanwhile, CM Punk retains the WWE title in a triple threat match against Kane and Daniel Bryan. Notably, No Way Out is WWE's 6th pay-per-view of 2012, and it's the 6th one in which neither world title match went on last. Ah well, at least Johnny Hungy wrestled on the show, against fellow Hungry Man Ryback no less. June 18th. TNA files for an injunction against Scott Steiner after the former TNA star makes numerous disparaging remarks publicly about TNA, Hulk Hogan, and other TNA employees. TNA claims Steiner is not permitted to do this as a result of breaching a contract he signed in 2010. Pro wrestling, everybody. June 21st. Claire Lynch debuts on Impact Wrestling, and that is actually more embarrassing than the Scott Steiner injunction, if I'm being honest. On the same date, JBL begins climbing Russia's Mount Elbrus as part of a campaign to reach the world's 7 summits while raising money for Bermuda's Family Center. A week into the climb, JBL finishes his climb at 17,500 feet, about 1,000 feet short of the peak, due to a storm pushing his group off course. June 24th. After prior pay-per-views were compromised by technical issues, Ring of Honor's Best in the World is a vast improvement from a broadcast standpoint. The 8-match event from New York's Hammerstein Ballroom is a strong card that sees Kevin Steen retain the world title over Davey Richards, Adam Cole defeat Kyle O'Reilly in a hybrid rules match, and the All Night Express win the tag team titles from Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin, the latter decision being one Jim Cornette would quickly regret. June 28th. Former FCW and NXT performer Maxine quits WWE after continued frustrations. She will later go on to perform for Lucha Underground and MLW as Katrina, the mystical valet of Mil Muertes. July 1st. New Japan and All Japan hold another interpromotional event, a 10-match joint card at Tokyo Sumo Hall commemorating each promotion's 40-year anniversary. Several multi-man tag matches pit the promotions head-to-head, though Triple Crown champion Jun Akiyama and IWGP Heavyweight champion Hiroshi Tanahashi face promotional rivals Tai Okeya and Togi Makabe respectively. July 5th. Reigning Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champion Kenny King wrestles for TNA, resulting in Booker Jim Cornette stripping he and Rhett Titus of the belts. King's Ring of Honor contract expired on June 24th, the day he and Titus won the belts, but he'd agreed to stick around on a verbal deal. King and Cornette's contractual issues results in the two falling out, with Cornette periodically ranting about King to this very day. July 8th. TNA delivers big in Orlando with Destination X, one of its strongest pay-per-views. The X Division themed card is packed with superb matches, including Samoa Joe beating longtime rival Kurt Angle and AJ Styles outlasting Christopher Daniels in a last man standing match. Zema Ion wins the vacated X Division title in an Ultimate X match, while Austin Aries wins the TNA World title in the main event, ending Bobby Roode's 8.5-month reign. July 9th. In the lamest payoff since The Sopranos finale ended abruptly, Hornswoggle is revealed as Raw's anonymous GM. The same day, Hornswoggle's kayfabe father Fit Finlay is rehired by WWE as a producer. Also hired is indie wrestling standout Sarah Del Rey, who becomes WWE's first ever female trainer. July 11th. WWE invests $5 million dues into Tout, a social media video service. As part of their strategic partnership, WWE has their wrestlers use Tout for kayfabe purposes and broadcasts editorials from fans using the service. It was as delightful as it sounds. July 15th. The 2012 Money in the Bank brings 9,000 fans to Phoenix's US Airways Center. The namesake ladder matches are won by Dolph Ziggler and John Cena. Ziggler holds onto his briefcase through the end of 2012, while Cena calls his shot on the following night's Raw, informing WWE Champion CM Punk that he's cashing in 7 days. Punk retains his title on the card by defeating Daniel Bryan in a no disqualification match, with future wife AJ Lee presiding as guest referee. July 21st. 26-year-old welterweight Matt Riddle defeats Chris Clements via third-round submission at UFC 149 in Calgary. However, the result is later overturned to a no contest after Riddle tests positive for cannabis. July 22nd. TNA and Pro Wrestling Noah kick off a new business relationship, beginning with Noah's great voyage at Tokyo Sumo Hall. Christopher Daniels loses to GHC Junior Heavyweight Champion Yoshinobu Kanemaru, while Samoa Joe and Magnus, aka Nick Aldis, defeat Jun Akiyama and Akitoshi Saito to win the GHC Tag Team belts. July 23rd. Monday Night Raw celebrates its 1,000th episode before 18,000 fans in St. Louis. The show is filled with cameos from a litany of WWE legends and concludes with John Cena's failed cash-in on the champion CM Punk. Cena wins via DQ after Big Show interferes, prompting The Rock to run in for the save. Punk turns heel out of nowhere, giving the GTS to The Rock, who earlier in the night had issued a challenge for the WWE title at the Royal Rumble in 6 months. Also of note from the broadcast is AJ Lee becoming Raw's GM after standing up Daniel Bryan at the altar of their in-show wedding, presided over by the Doctor of Style himself, Slick. This Raw also marks the beginning of the program moving to 3 hours permanently, something fans will probably still be lamenting about whenever the hell you get round to watching this. July 24th. Karma confirms that she's been released from WWE 7 months after competing in her only official match in the company. The woman best known as Awesome Kong returns to the Indies that November, competing as Amazing Kong in a tag match with Jazz at a Shine event. July 26th. Seth Rollins becomes the first ever NXT Champion, capturing the title after defeating Jinder Mahal in the finals of an 8-man tournament in Winter Park, Florida. On the same date, Velvet Sky is released from TNA, amid stories that the company's looking to restructure contracts as a cost saver. Sky ultimately returns to the company in December. July 30th. Primetime Players manager AW, formerly Abraham Washington, makes an edgy remark about Kobe Bryant during a Raw broadcast in Cincinnati. The real-life Brian Jossie is released from WWE on August 10th, though Jossie claims it wasn't because of the Kobe remark, but because he tweeted a Senate endorsement for Linda McMahon, despite WWE reportedly telling wrestlers not to do so, as Linda wanted to distance herself from wrestling. August 2nd. WWE Network's launch is once again delayed. Tentative plans for a November debut go by the wayside as Vince McMahon evades most network-related questions at the quarterly investors call, while CFO George Barrios does say that several formats for the network were under consideration. August 11th. Ring of Honor holds Boiling Point at the Rhode Island Convention Center in Providence. In the main event, Kevin Steen retains the Ring of Honor World title over Eddie Kingston in a no disqualification match. On the same date, Red Bastien, one of the preeminent babyface stars of American wrestling in the 50s and 60s, passes away from Alzheimer's disease at the age of 81. Bastien was renowned for his evolutionary high-flying style, as well as his meticulous selling, both skills befitting of his sub-200-pound frame. A well-traveled star, Bastien held gold in the AWA, Florida, Portland, Detroit, Japan, and in the WWF's predecessor, the Capital Wrestling Corporation. Bastien trained such heavyweights as the Barbarian, Max Payne, the Angel of Death, Sting, and the Ultimate Warrior. He also served as president of the Cauliflower Alley Club from 2001 to 2007. August 12th. TNA holds Hardcore Justice before 1,100 fans in Orlando. Austin Aries retains the TNA World title over former champion Bobby Roode in the main event, with the stipulation being that it was Roode's only rematch against Aries. The night also features several multi-person gimmick matches, each with points in the Bound for Glory series at stake. On the same date, Kazuchika Okada wins the 2012 G1 Climax after defeating Carl Anderson in the 23-minute final. Okada becomes the first competitor since Haruki Goto in 2008 to win the G1 on their first try. August 14th. Linda McMahon wins the Republican nomination for Senate in the state of Connecticut, winning 73% of the votes against opponent Chris Shays. August 18th. Ronda Rousey retains her Strikeforce Bantamweight Championship after submitting Sarah Kaufman in just 54 seconds at a card in San Diego. 6 career fights, 6 wins, all with the armbar. August 19th. WWE holds a decent, if mostly forgettable, SummerSlam at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, the most bought SummerSlam in 3 years. Credit for the good business would go to Brock Lesnar, who defeats Triple H via submission in the second match of his comeback after breaking Triple H's arm via a Kimura lock. The game does a sullen walk of respect after the match, marred by many fans gleefully chanting, "You tapped out." The only title change of the night occurs on the pre-show, as Antonio Cesaro defeats Santino Marella to win the US title. An outbound Chris Jericho scores a surprise win over Dolph Ziggler, but loses to him on Raw the next night to begin his latest months-long sabbatical. August 20th. Gabby Tuft, then wrestling as Tyler Rex, quits WWE shortly after forming a new tag team with Kurt Hawkins. August 25th. WWE brings back Saturday Morning Wrestling to an extent with Saturday Morning Slam, an extremely kid-friendly program on the CW. Matches on the half-hour program are heavier on the comedy spots, and cameras cut away from all moves performed to the head or neck. The highlight of the show is, of course, Daniel Bryan's ongoing diatribe about the virtues of wrestling bears. August 27th. Speaking of Bryan, one of the more famous series of comic vignettes airs during Raw, as he and Kane both attend anger management classes. The highlight is Kane calmly and matter-of-factly running down all the traumatic events he's either endured or inflicted in his life. The sessions lead to Bryan and Kane forming a frequently bickering tag team that rejuvenates both men as characters. September 2nd. Adam Cole wins PWG's 2012 Battle of Los Angeles tournament, running through El Generico, Eddie Edwards, Sami Callihan, and Michael Elgin across 2 days to win the 16-man tourney. September 3rd. WWE Raw concludes with the revelation of Paul Heyman as the new manager of WWE champion CM Punk, which gives Heyman a regular weekly role during Brock Lesnar's sabbaticals. September 9th. After months of rather inspired pay-per-view outings, TNA misfires a bit with No Surrender in Orlando, doing themselves no favors by not announcing any matches until 72 hours before the event. Jeff Hardy wins the 2012 Bound for Glory series after defeating Samoa Joe and Bully Ray in the tournament bouts on the card, earning himself a shot at world champion Austin Aries at Bound for Glory. September 10th. Jerry the King Lawler suffers a heart attack at ringside while on headset for Monday's Raw in Montreal. The 62-year-old Lawler participated in a match earlier in the night, teaming with Randy Orton against CM Punk and Dolph Ziggler. A shaken Michael Cole remains at ringside to provide explanation and updates, after Lawler's stretchered out and tended to by medics. While it's later revealed that Lawler was clinically dead for 20 minutes, Cole informs the home audience at night's end that Lawler was alert and breathing independently. Lawler returns home to Memphis a week later and will return to Raw before year's end. September 15th. Ring of Honor once more has a pay-per-view marred by technical issues, as a glitch prevents customers from seeing Death Before Dishonor in Chicago until an hour into the show. Kevin Steen retains the Ring of Honor World title in the main event after defeating Rhino, while Scum teammates Jimmy Jacobs and Steve Corino win the vacant tag team titles, defeating Rhett Titus and Charlie Haas in a tournament final. September 16th. It took until September, but WWE finally holds a pay-per-view in 2012 where a world title went on last. Night of Champions draws nearly 15,000 to Boston's TD Garden for a card filled with title matches, none better than the WWE title match. Champion CM Punk ends up going to a 27-minute double pin with John Cena in one of WWE's best matches of the year. World Heavyweight Champion Sheamus finally ends a months-long rivalry with a win over Alberto Del Rio, while Daniel Bryan and Kane win the tag team titles from Kofi Kingston and R-Truth. September 23rd. MMA legend Kazushi Sakuraba returns to New Japan after a 16-year absence at Destruction, held in front of 8,000 fans at the Kobe World Memorial Hall. Sakuraba teams with Katsuyori Shibata to defeat Hiromu Takahashi and Wataru Inoue in a 3-minute bout. Also on the card, Hiroshi Tanahashi retains the IWGP Heavyweight title, defeating Naomichi Marufuji, who had beaten Tanahashi in that year's G1. September 26th. TNA strips Devon of the television title 1 month after his contract expires, and the two sides are unable to reach an agreement on a new deal. Samoa Joe captures the vacant title on the following night's Impact. September 28th. Kelly Kelly receives her release from WWE after taking most of the summer months off. Kelly later reveals that she wanted time off to heal a neck injury and was looking to pursue other interests. September 29th. JBL completes a climb of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, reaching the peak at over 19,000 feet. October 3rd. WWE debuts a new secondary show in Main Event on ION Television. The debut broadcast is taped the night before in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and includes a non-title battle of world champions, in which CM Punk defeats Sheamus. October 4th. Gawker editor AJ Daulerio leaks a clip from a sex tape featuring Hulk Hogan and Heather Clem, once the wife of radio personality and one-time Hogan loyalist Bubba the Love Sponge. This leak will lead to legal action against both Gawker and the Clems, as well as public debate regarding privacy versus freedom of the press. Bubba will settle out of court with Hogan later in the month. As part of the settlement, Bubba agrees to publicly apologize for filming the act without Hogan's knowledge. Unbeknownst to the public at the time, Hogan had also shared racist sentiments on this tape, and in July of 2015, he would once again be at the center of a major public scandal. October 5th. Longtime WWE writer Brian Gewirtz is removed from his role on the creative team. The move was done in response to recent low ratings for Monday Night Raw. Gewirtz will remain with the WWE as a consultant until mid-2015. October 6th. Ring of Honor experiences a creative shakeup as Hunter Delirious Johnston replaces Jim Cornette as head booker on the day of a Ring of Honor card in Rahway, New Jersey. The same day, Tommy Dreamer's House of Hardcore runs its first ever card before nearly 2,000 fans in Poughkeepsie, New York. Wrestlers like the Young Bucks, Carlito, Scott Steiner, Rhino, and others work the 12-match card. Also on that date, Dave Batista competes in his only ever MMA fight, defeating Vince Lucero via first-round TKO at a CES MMA card in Providence, Rhode Island. October 8th. New Japan holds its critically acclaimed King of Pro Wrestling at Sumo Hall in Tokyo before 9,000 fans. The main event sees Hiroshi Tanahashi Tanahashi retained the IWGP Heavyweight title over Minoru Suzuki in a 29-minute match that will be voted 2012's Match of the Year by readers of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. The same day, CM Punk strikes a fan during an episode of Raw in Sacramento. Punk was in the crowd as part of an angle with Vince McMahon when he was shoved by several fans in his vicinity and retaliated accordingly. The incident made the local news, while WWE claimed that proper security measures hadn't been put in place regarding Punk's safety for the angle. October 13th. The first Ring of Honor event of the Delirious era, Glory by Honor in suburban Toronto, is a critical success. Top matches include Kevin Steen retaining his Ring of Honor World title against Michael Elgin, Jay Lethal defeating Davey Richards, and Adam Cole retaining his television title over Eddie Edwards. October 14th. TNA's biggest pay-per-view of the year, Bound for Glory, takes place in front of a mere 2,900 fans at the GCU Arena in Phoenix. Jeff Hardy wins the TNA World title from Austin Aries in the main event, while Devon returns to the organization, costing Bully Ray in a tag match and aligning with Aces and Eights. In all, 4 titles change hands on the night. Among them, the X Division title, which Rob Van Dam wins from Zema Ion. October 17th. It's reported that WWE has made 2 recent announcing hires. Tom Hannafin, who will be renamed Tom Phillips, and Renee Paquette to become Renee Young. Both of them will work in WWE into the 2020s. October 18th. Marvin Lambert, best known as deathmatch wrestler Brain Damage, passes away in an apparent suicide at the age of 34. Lambert was a fixture in promotions like CZW and IWA Mid-South during the latter part of the 2000s, holding gold in both promotions. Lambert last wrestled 1 year before his death, defeating a young Matt Tremont. October 19th. Mike Graham, son of wrestler and promoter Eddie Graham and star in his father's Florida territory in the 70s and 80s, commits suicide at the age of 61. Graham held numerous singles and tag team championships in Florida and was also a former 2-time AWA light heavyweight champion. Graham wrestled in WCW in the early 90s before retiring to become a road agent and trainer for the promotion. October 25th. Richie Steamboat wrestles what turns out to be the final match of his career as of this video, defeating Cassius Ohno at an NXT house show. A back injury and subsequent surgery end the younger Steamboat's career at 25 years of age. October 28th. WWE produces a rather weak Hell in a Cell pay-per-view before 10,000 fans at Atlanta's Phillips Arena. An injury to John Cena leads to WWE putting Ryback in the WWE title match with CM Punk inside the titular cage. Punk wins following a screwy finish where previously unknown referee Brad Maddox costs Ryback the match. The only title change marked the end of Sheamus's lukewarm world title run, as he lost the belt to Big Show in what was arguably match of the night. October 29th. Beth Phoenix is fired by Vicky Guerrero in an angle on WWE Raw, which legitimately marks the end of Beth's time with the company. The multi-time women's title holder had given her notice to WWE in September, revealing years later her frustrations with the booking of WWE's women's division of the time. She would, of course, return to the fold, but many years down the line. October 30th. THQ releases their final WWE video game, WWE 13, on PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and the Nintendo Wii. The game is positively received, particularly for the mode that allowed the player to recreate key moments from the Attitude Era, while unlocking dozens of stars and arenas for in-game use. November 1st. Brad Armstrong, second oldest son of the legendary Bullet Bob Armstrong and one of the most underrated technical wrestlers of all time, passes away from what some sources report as a heart attack at the age of 50. During the peak of his career, Armstrong feuded with the likes of Ted DiBiase, Jimmy Garvin, the Sheepherders, and the Four Horsemen across several southeastern territories. Armstrong held gold in WCW, Florida, Georgia, Mid-South, and Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Armstrong was also known for some of the eclectic gimmicks he took on, such as Spider-Man analog Arachna Man, Freebird's sidekick Bad Street, and the free-spirited hippie Buzzkill, which borrowed heavily from Brother Brian's Road Dogg character. November 6th. Linda McMahon loses in her second bid for the US Senate, gaining just 43% of the vote in a loss to Democrat Chris Murphy. November 10th. Tickets go on sale for WrestleMania 29 in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Over 52,029 seats are sold on the first day, accounting for a then record $10 million at the gate. November 11th. TNA puts on a mostly good Turning Point in Orlando, headlined by Jeff Hardy retaining the TNA World title over Austin Aries in a stunt-filled ladder match. The event is notable for announcer Todd Kennelly taking over as play-by-play voice, with TNA lifer Mike Tenay moving to color alongside Taz. On the same date, New Japan's Power Struggle draws 6,600 to the Prefectural Gymnasium in Osaka. Hiroshi Tanahashi retains the IWGP Heavyweight title over Yujiro Takahashi in an excellent main event, while Shinsuke Nakamura retains the Intercontinental title against Carl Anderson. In the undercard, Prince Devitt regains the Junior Heavyweight title from Low Ki in another quality matchup. November 12th. 9 weeks after nearly dying from a heart attack, Jerry Lawler returns to WWE during an episode of Raw. The King discusses his life-threatening experience and thanks all the fans for their support. The segment then turns into an angle where CM Punk and Paul Heyman make fun of him because, you know, easy heat. November 16th. UFC middleweight and future New Japan and MLW star Filthy Tom Lawler pays tribute to the Shockmaster during the weigh-ins for UFC 154 in Montreal. Wearing a disheveled mask and similar sleeveless vest as Shockmaster, Lawler recreates Shockmaster's timeless debut, fall and all, while entering the weigh-in stage. Bonus points, Lawler even gets host Joe Rogan to set him up by announcing that Filthy vowed to shock the world. On the same date, Ronda Rousey becomes the first female fighter to sign with UFC, coinciding with the impending dissolution of Strikeforce. Due to Rousey's status as Strikeforce Women's Bantamweight Champion, UFC President Dana White declares that Rousey will be the first Women's Bantamweight Champion of the UFC. November 18th. The 2012 Survivor Series draws 8,500 fans to Indianapolis's Bankers Life Fieldhouse and would have been just a show if not for the very significant ending. Late in the WWE triple threat between CM Punk, John Cena, and Ryback, the latter two individuals are jumped by a debuting Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns, who will soon be christened The Shield. With the win, Punk becomes the first man since Cena in 2007 to reign as WWE Champion for one whole year. Punk will also go on to hold the WWE title through the end of 2012, making the calendar year the first since 1987 to not feature a WWE title change. November 20th. Following in the footsteps of Ox Baker and Brian Kendrick, independent ring announcer Larry Legend becomes the latest wrestling personality to appear on The Price is Right, where he wins a plethora of prizes. Legend will go on to use the classic Price is Right theme as his own entrance theme in subsequent wrestling appearances. November 22nd. Original Ascension member Kenneth Cameron is arrested for disorderly intoxication and battery on a law enforcement officer. Cameron is released from WWE shortly after and subsequently becomes Bram in Impact Wrestling. November 26th. Buddy Roberts, one of the founding members of the Freebirds, passes away from pneumonia at the age of 65. After holding tag team gold in numerous territories with Jerry Brown as the original Hollywood Blondes, Roberts helped comprise the original Freebirds with Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy in Mid-South in 1979. The three men famously feuded with the Von Erichs in Dallas's World Class for several years. Though best known for his tag exploits, the technically gifted Buddy Jack also held singles gold in the Blanchard Southwest Territory and feuded regularly with Von Erich ally Chris Adams. November 27th. A bizarre incident takes place at a SmackDown taping in Bossier City, LA. As writer David Kapoor was filming a segment backstage, one of the lights in use somehow caused the dressing room sprinklers to go off. In a subsequent blog post, JBL recalled the chaos as numerous wrestlers and staffers were struggling to save their clothes and electronics while the sprinklers flooded out one of the dressing rooms. December 3rd. More than 1 year after last competing in a match, Ric Flair says he'll never wrestle again, and for more than 9 years, he kept his word. If only it had stuck. On the same day, Calgary Mayor Naheed Ninsi designates the Hart family house as a historic landmark. The building was home to the Hart family from 1951 until Patriarch Stu's death in 2003. The basement of Hart House is best known as the Dungeon, and is where Stu and others trained prospective wrestlers and tormented wannabes. December 4th. WWE Champion CM Punk undergoes arthroscopic knee surgery, causing him to be pulled from a WWE title match with Ryback at the upcoming TLC Pay-Per-View. Punk will be sidelined for about 5 weeks. December 5th. Kickstarter backers are treated to an early screening of Nigel McGuinness's documentary, The Last of McGuinness. In the documentary, an introspective McGuinness sheds light on the circumstances that led to the end of his active wrestling career, and comes to terms with the sudden end of his lifelong dream. December 6th. Big E Langston, remember that surname, wins the NXT title from Seth Rollins in a no disqualification match at an NXT taping in Winter Park, Florida. Langston will also debut on WWE's main event 11 nights later, attacking John Cena and aligning with Dolph Ziggler and AJ Lee. December 9th. TNA holds its final pay-per-view of 2012, Final Resolution, in Orlando. World champion Jeff Hardy defeats Bobby Roode in the main event, while Christopher Daniels defeats longtime rival AJ Styles in the semi-main. On the same day, former 3-time All Japan Triple Crown champion and 1-time GHC heavyweight champion Kenta Kobashi announces at a Noah card in Sumo Hall that he'll wrestle his retirement match the following year. Following the 2009 death of Mitsuharu Misawa and the 2010 retirement of Toshiaki Kawada, Kobashi and Akira Taue are the last of the 4 pillars still active in the ring, though both will hang it up by the end of 2013. December 10th. Kazuchika Okada becomes the youngest winner of the Tokyo Sports Japanese Wrestling MVP Award, having just turned 25 the previous month. December 16th. WWE debuts with a bang at Brooklyn's brand new Barclays Center with TLC, one of the company's stronger pay-per-view outings in 2012. The Shield debut in grand fashion, defeating Kane, Daniel Bryan, and Ryback in a wild TLC match, while Dolph Ziggler retains his Money in the Bank briefcase by beating John Cena in a ladder match. Also, Big Show hit Sheamus with a comically large steel chair, which is awesome for reasons that should be self-evident. On the same date, Ring of Honor holds Final Battle at New York's Hammerstein Ballroom. In the main event, Kevin Steen retains the world title by defeating El Generico in a hellacious ladder war. The occasion marks one of Generico's final matches before disappearing from the business to help run an orphanage. December 17th. 7 months after being released from TNA, Ric Flair returns to WWE for the first time in over 3 years, appearing on the Slammy Awards broadcast. WWE doesn't advertise Flair ahead of time, possibly due to the ongoing legal action between WWE and TNA over contract tampering. December 21st. The world ends. Just kidding. December 24th. The Christmas Eve edition of WWE Raw centers around a threading storyline that begins with Alberto Del Rio running over Santa Claus, and includes regular updates on St. Nick's condition. Frankly, the apocalypse might have been a more desirable option. And that was Timeline 2012. Are there any other years you'd like us to cover? Let us know in the comments below.